Okay, so what I wanted to build was I got some of this zip cord, they call it. This is actually 10 gauge, I believe. 10 gauge. You can buy it on eBay. That's where I buy it, and as well as that's where I bought my Anderson power poles from. So you want to make sure that it's flat across, obviously, so they're both the same length. And then there's two ways to go about splitting the zip cord. You can either take your clippers and clip in between and then pull it apart like that, or well, there's probably more than two ways, but anyways, or you can just take a knife. Any knife will work, and get that in there. Maybe put it on your bench, push down on it, make a small slice there, and then you can peel it apart, and it peels apart relatively easily. Okay, so the next thing you'll have to do is strip your ends. And so when you strip the ends, you can put it in your stripper and then match this piece up, the barrel of the crimp part. And you want to be, I would say, me personally, I go about 1/8 of an inch longer than the barrel crimp itself when I cut the wire. So I think that's pretty good there. And now you can just match up the sides here to where you strip the last one. So they're both even. And that's pretty close. And now we want to put this on. Quick little twist just to get the end together. Now the 10 gauge on even on these 30 amperes is usually it'll just fit if you can get it in there right, but sometimes you'll lose a couple of the strands. And so what I do with the strands that don't go in, if I don't get it in right, and again, this is another thing that I'm sure somebody will give me a hard time about, but anyways, I just wrap them around the bottom. You really don't need it all in there, but you want as much as you can get in there. So after that, I take my crimper, regular crimper, and I put the barrel crimp in there, and I go as close to the end towards the zip cord end as I can, and I crimp as hard as I can. 2 hands. Now once that's done, you'll see it kind of widens it out a little bit here. And I've had issues initially when I first started using these where it wouldn't fit in there right. So after I crimp, and you can see how I did it as close as I can to this end where my finger is. I take this, go back, and you see how I put it on there. And then I just squeeze that in a little bit, and you got to be easy. And a couple times just to kind of get it back into shape. And there you go. Now that's on there. And if you look, I mean, I probably could if I really yanked it, pull it off, but you know, the fact that I can do this, put some force on it, it's not going off. You can see the wire didn't even move in there. That's good enough. And again, this is how I've done all mine, so I didn't have to go out and buy the expensive tool. Well, that one fit in pretty good. I only had one strand that didn't make it, so I'll wrap that around the bottom like I said. Again, now, okay, so this is one thing. Now, I took the zip cord like I'm going to put it in the connector. And I have my ends pointed down like they should. If you look at the curved part, it is pointed down. So when I slip this in, it'll slip right in the way that it should. Again, I take my crimper and I put it on there with the dimple part up like this. As far back as I can get it on the crimp. And I crimp. And all my force into it. That worked out pretty good. Oop. I better crimp that one more time. It's not an exact science, I'll say that. So, so I got it. Shape it up a little bit. Give it the tug. Make sure you can't pull it off easily. And you know, one thing being said about pulling it, I mean, yeah, any crimp with wire this size and stranded, chances are you're going to be able to yank that right off of there if you really, really put a lot of force into it. But you don't need to apply that much force. What you want is make sure it's tight, and that's pretty tight. You know, it's not going to come out of there. So next phase is you just slide them in, and then you push them in until you hear the click. And oops, better get a little more split there. So I'll put the red one in first, and again, the hook part down and then in, and that's the way it'll look when you're pushing it in with the hook part down. Oop, I don't know if you could hear that little click, but there it is. Fits in nice. The wire sits inside there pretty good. So we'll put the next one in. Takes a little maneuvering sometimes. Oop. See where I'm at here. Oop. Straighten that out. See, that one took a little more force to put in, but sometimes they do. But it did go in and it clicked. And see, it came apart, which is not a big deal. You just gotta manipulate it again and slide it back together once you're done. Now I always, when I'm done, I pull these on these just to make sure they're in there good. And it looks like, oops, see, that one did not click. So, oh, there it is. It clicked now. So there you go. Your end's on. Looks pretty good. I don't know if you can see inside there. But I guess my point is that you don't need to buy the tool. You can use this if you're careful and you take your time and a little bit of patience. Is it the best way? I'm not going to say that. Is it the easiest way? I'm not going to say that either. But if you don't have the extra money to spend on the right, you know, the tool that they want you to buy, you can use this and it works out fine. I've used it on all my equipment. I've had no issues. And, you know, that's not going anywhere. So, and I don't know if I have something right handy that I could plug it into or not. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I got one. So I got a cord right here, and you can see how they marry together. And voila. So this cord I was actually making because I wanted to make a jumper to go to a battery. So I'm going to actually cut this end, make it kind of long, probably somewhere in the 6-foot range, and then put another some connectors, crimp some connectors on the other end to hook up to a battery. So that's my video, Anderson power poles, and you do not need the tool if you don't want to spend the money on it.